Good evening, everybody. I'm Dana Cordano. I am acting chair, and I will call to order our Environment Utilities Commission at 6:04. And we have a land acknowledgement. Is someone going to give? We're not going to do the land acknowledgement. Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll move to item number 1 on the General Administration Function Part 1, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the commission. Do we have anything on there?
We don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to do a roll call vote or roll call?
It's at your discretion. If you would like to, we can. Otherwise, we don't have to.
Okay. We'll skip roll call. All right. So we have nothing. So we'll move to item number 2, presentations. Consideration of the contract for services with Green Waste Recovery LLC for exclusive solid waste collection.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Ryan Burnett. I am the sustainability manager for the city of West Sacramento. I've been with the city for 10 years, 8 of those in water conservation and 2 as the sustainability manager. I am going to be joined this evening by Kate Schultz. We as a city have taken the lead on this project, but considering the scope, we've also requested some technical assistance from R3 Consulting for this request. So What we are seeking today is to provide the presentation I'm doing now, which is our recommendation for awarding a solid waste collection agreement with Green Waste Recovery. We would like you to open for public comment, and we would also ask that you provide recommendations and input on this agreement. So before we actually jump into the procurement process and why we chose Green Waste as the top candidate, we thought it would be helpful to provide this body with some background. The world of waste hauling is complicated, and we know there's a lot to it, so we're hoping this can provide a little bit of a background so that you can present us with the right questions. So we've had our current provider, Waste Management, since 1987. Since that time, we've had multiple contracts. Those contracts have had amendments. The current contract we have started in 2017, and it expires in 2027. So we also have separate agreements with the Yellow County Central Landfill for the disposal of trash and organic material. They have a very impressive organics processing facility where they create compost, which the city then actually repurchases. Per contract, we did a performance review of the current hauler, and that was finished in July of 2025. And after coordination amongst staff and city leadership, it was decided that we would go out to bid. So this city has a strong financial philosophy of bids and competition. We've been with the same hauler since 1987, and so it was decided as a group that it was time to see what else was out there. We want to make sure that the next waste hauler contract addresses regulatory requirements that have come into view since the contract was started in 2017, and we want to finish this process with the best overall candidate. I'm going to hand it over to Kate for a few slides. She's going to address a few more background items.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Commission, for having me here tonight. As he mentioned, I'm Kate Schultz. I'm with R3 Consulting. I'm going to start with setting the stage a little bit about what some of the priorities are and the needs out of a waste agreement at this point in time. And that's largely driven right now by SB 1383, which are the state regulations relative to short-lived climate pollutants. It really changes the scope of solid waste in California and puts a lot more demands on the cities and on their haulers. So it's no longer just collecting waste. There's the obligations to reduce organic waste through disposal, collection, education, enforcement. The city can designate their contracted hauler to provide some of those services. So it's really, really important to be crisp on what the roles and responsibilities are and what the haulers need to do relative to all of those requirements, meaning making sure the data is good for record keeping for the state, doing contamination monitoring and education and outreach. These are all really important things to do at this point. And the franchise agreements must clearly delineate those rules and hold the collection provider to performance standards to make sure they're meeting and achieving those requirements. In terms of the timeline, 1383 was signed into law in 2016, and then the regulations really took effect in 2022, which means that this all came into effect after your last agreement was signed with your current hauler. So it's just a really good time to take a moment and make sure it really robustly addresses all of your needs. Another important framing for the future provider and the franchise agreement is the billing. Currently and up to date, the city has done the billing for the collection provider and provided one consolidated utility bill for all of the services. Moving forward with the new agreement, the new provider will be doing that billing directly, so that offers some opportunities relative to making sure the customer service levels are really clear. There's just innate problems with having that information in two different places and making sure it speaks to each other. And then it also enables the new provider to provide tools directly to the customers. That wasn't possible before when the city was doing the billing. So this just kind of helps set the stage for what some of the priorities were through the procurement and how the city and the evaluation panel looked at some of the service offerings. I'll hand it back to Ryan.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm going to talk a little bit about rates. So the city has historically set customer-facing rates, but has not increased rates for refuse since 2021. So there's a variety of reasons for that. One of them was, helping people recover from COVID. We recently passed our water and sewer rates, and we thought it would be prudent not to pass the refuse rate at the same time. We are trying to be thoughtful about when these things go into effect. But what that does mean is that the current hauler, per the contract, is allowed to increase their rates annually. That's only fair. Costs go up. So what that means is it is estimated that for fiscal year 26-27, the city will be subsidizing $1.9 million, covering the gap between what we adopted back in 2021 and what Waste Management is charging us as a city now. And as you would imagine, that's not a tenable situation. So here are a few more details about our updated franchise agreement, which is just another word for a contract. So per industry standard, we are offering a 10-year term from July 27 to June 2037 with 2 5-year extensions at the city's sole discretion. We're also consolidating a franchise fee. So the franchise fee is the revenue that the city gets in recognition of awarding exclusivity to a hauler. That franchise fee allows us to pay for staff, work on the agreement. There's a lot of meetings that we have with our haulers. There's issues that we resolve, outreach. There's just a lot of, even though they're taking over the actual hauling of the material, there's still a lot of touch points between the city and the hauler. So we need funds to be able to continue in partnership with them. So as mentioned before, we've decided to go out to bid last year. So on November 6th, we released a RFP, or request for proposals, for solid waste collection services. That RFP was informed by expertise from our consultants, by staff input, and also by a survey that was sent out last year in which we reached out to the public and asked, what are the things that you would be looking for in a new waste hauler contract? And we took that feedback and incorporated it into our proposal. We received 3 qualifying and complete proposals from Atlas Disposal, Green Waste Recovery, and Waste Management. So after we received these robust proposals, we decided upon a criteria with which to evaluate them. So this criteria was come up with in partnership with staff and leadership: quality of experience, references, operational services, sustainability, customer service, service rates, and value. And after we reviewed all of the proposals, we read them over and over. We made sure to remain objective and treat each candidate equally. Green Waste came out on top with 86.4 as the top point getter. So that's the background that led us to choose Green Waste. What I'd like to do now is take you through a few slides explaining why we chose Green Waste and why we think they are the best fit for this city for the next 10 years. So one element that we requested in our RFP that Green Waste is able to fulfill is a new local call center. So we've all experienced call centers before. Some of us have had good experiences, some of us have not had great experiences. And so a local call center ensures that it's a California-based center. Theirs is going to be in Sacramento. And that makes sure that those who answer the phone have a deep familiarity with our contract and our programs. They have committed to a call wait time of 3 minutes or less. There's a callback feature. There's also going to be a mobile app, which I'm excited about because the mobile app will have a feature called What Goes Where. So if you've ever had the experience where you have to throw something away and you're not sure where to put it, even if you Google something, it cannot be right. So what goes where through the mobile app will be the verified place to put those items. And that's great because, we get a lot of calls from people who are legitimately confused about where something should go. And we're going to take that stress off of our customers' shoulders. Okay, on to billing. So as Kate mentioned before, there are some, there are benefits of having billing all under one head through the city. It's just one bill, but we have found that that doesn't balance out with some of the difficulties of having two data sets and not being able to access the full suite of online services. So Green Waste will take over billing. There will be electronic or paper billing, the ability to customize your invoices, obviously auto pay. You can also continue to pay by mail, phone, or in person if you'd like. But this will open up the ability to go directly online to schedule services. Okay, outreach. So we were very impressed by Green Waste's proposal, specifically with outreach. So they're offering enhanced technical assistance to all sectors, residential, commercial, and multifamily. One thing I'm excited about is that when you sort properly, there will be recognition moving forward. And we think that's important because we don't want, obviously there is a component where we have to educate people if they're sorting improperly, but we think it's important that people be educated and rewarded with recognition if they are sorting properly, because that also creates its own culture. So that is the positive reinforcement, the feedback tags. Green Waste will also visit each school at least twice a year. And as you can see in the picture there, that's a little quokka. I think I'm saying that right, quokka. It's a cute little creature from Australia or New Zealand, and he will be part of the outreach campaign. And they have like a safety quokka and a community quokka and an education quokka, and we think that adds a really fun and human element to what is often a kind of potentially burdensome or complicated part of people's lives. Okay, sustainability. So I'm very excited about this slide as the sustainability manager. I will try to be short, but there's a lot of really good content on this slide. So one is that Green Waste responded in their proposal and addressed elements of our recently adopted climate action plan, which you all reviewed last year, specifically Goal 5, which was to be a waste-free city. So Green Waste is excited to partner with us on edible food recovery, organics procurement, and organics compliance through the Cleanup Day service, which is their term for bulky waste pickup. You can now include donatable items, which will then be, either directly donated or turned into, good materials. So there's they're addressing our CAP requirements and priorities. There's going to be a cleanup service, so that's basically the bulky waste pickup program. It is going to be one per year and not two. We did a lot of studies into that, and we found that over 90% over the past however many years the bulky waste program has been in existence, people usually just do one. And so I can't tell you all the different, very detailed decisions we made at the staff level in negotiations to try to get the rates as reasonable as they can. And this is an example of us trying to right-size things. There's going to be a rebranding of the contamination program. It's going to be really focused on behavior change. So there will be a 9-month grace period at the commencement of contract if Green Waste is chosen. So that 9-month will allow customers to get to know a new hauler and be educated without receiving a penalty. So we're also excited about doing a pilot period during that time to make sure what they consider contamination overage we agree with as a city. So we don't just loose the reins. We want to make sure it is really about education and behavior change. And then finally, I'm really excited about their use of RNG. So if you're not familiar with RNG, you have regular diesel fuel, you have gas, you have natural gas, which is gas that's pulled up out of the earth, and then you have renewable natural gas, which is actually methane that's taken from the landfill. So what could have been a negative emissions is actually brought back into the ecosystem and turned into natural gas. So really strong elements from green waste on sustainability. Technology and operations. So this was another area where we were impressed by Green Waste's very detailed explanation of all of the software and technology that they use to make sure, one, that it's an efficiently run waste hauling collection service, two, that it's safe, both for the drivers and for our customers. We want to make sure that if an incident happens, that there's objectivity to it. So there's cameras on inside the cab, outside the cab. It's really very robust. And route planning, even in their proposal, they already had, tentative routes for us. So that's evidence to us that, they really take this seriously and have the tools they need to run an efficient operation. So moving on to additional community value. So, I was thinking about it today. A waste hauler touches the community, almost every single person in the community on a weekly basis. And it's hard to think of any other service the city provides that really does that. So it's not just that they drive through our streets and pick up our trash. We want someone to be a member of the community and to do outreach and meaningful connection. So these are some ways in which they have promised to do so. So there will be community event sponsorships. There's going to be a scholarship program. So if someone who's interested in ag or land-based resources, they will have an opportunity to research that stuff. There's going to be customer awards for people who, at the top of the multifamily, which means apartment complex and commercial sectors, if they're really great at sorting, then they'll get a discount and recognition for that. There's going to be school recycling competitions, internship opportunities, and also, this is a little bit technical, but they've also going to be providing assistance with SB 1383 procurement. So that means the compost and mulch or alternative fuels. So that's a requirement we have as a city, and it's usually a pretty expensive one. So they are offering to help us reach those goals and giving a subscription to Recyclist software, which is how we as staff stay on top of all of the regulatory requirements in the waste world. Another component of the community benefit is direct partnerships with some key entities, the Center for Land-Based Learning, Mosaic, WestSAC, CACC, so that stands for the California Alliance for Community Composting. So they provided detailed plans for making sure that each of those entities work in partnership with them to create community compost centers to help increase and expand our edible food recovery and to provide workforce training. So I believe this is my last slide before I turn it over to Kate to discuss rates. So we do want to make sure this commission understands that Green Waste has offered full employment to all affected staff. We understand that people create relationships with their drivers. We understand the current hauler has been here for many years, and we want this to be as smooth of a transition as possible. So they are offering full employment to all qualifying staff. They will also provide pay at equal or better value, and they will be in strong communication with any and all unions in the waste hauling world. They'll host information sessions, conduct active recruitment, and Green Waste will emphasize keeping all drivers on the routes that they've been doing for years if possible. So I'm now going to hand it over to Kate, who's going to tell us all about rates.
Thank you, Ryan. So what Ryan reviewed kind of got us to why Green Waste ended up as the highest ranked proposer and why they're the recommendation here today. And now we need to talk about how this impacts customers on a daily basis through these utility rates. As we touched on at the start of the presentation, we knew going into this procurement that rates were going to increase for customers with this procurement process, given whichever hauler came out at the end of it. So we're going into that knowing that expectation, given the low baseline rates and given that the new agreement needed to be more robust than it was in the past. So we have that understanding. Green Waste has been understanding of that issue throughout the process and wants to support in that transition to new rates for customers. One way Green Waste is showing up on that is offering a low income discount of 20% to all eligible single family residents. That would be, eligibility would be based on PG&E Care Program eligibility. Green Waste is also offering services in these designated bundles that I will review. This way of packaging the service ensures that every customer is provided the required services to be compliant with SB 1383 right off the bat. So it removes some of that back and forth and complexity associated with that. Sorry, I clearly don't know how to use this clicker. So first we'll go over the single family bundle. The bundle is the rate for your bundle is based on your garbage subscription volume. So you can get a garbage from 32 gallons to 96, and that establishes your monthly rate for your garbage service. With that bundle is an included 96-gallon recyclables container and a 96-gallon organic waste container. You can reduce the size of those to accommodate your need as applicable. And you also, for all three streams, you can get an additional container if that's what your household needs. The multifamily service is similarly bundled. So in a multifamily complex, you get the garbage service that you need, and the way the franchise agreement was set up was to require a minimum amount of recycling and organics based on number of dwelling units. So the goal there is for residents of multifamily complexes to have equal access to these opportunities to divert. So there's an increasing number of dwelling units, you get an increased amount of service, and this just automatically makes sure there's that access to that service. So the minimum required amount will come with that garbage rate. Again, if you need more in addition to that minimum amount, there would be an additional cost. Similar concept for commercial, except we don't have that kind of escalating scale based on anything, just because businesses can vary so greatly. You know, a restaurant's going to need a lot more organic waste service than an office building. So the minimum required service for the commercial sector is a 96-gallon recyclables and a 32-gallon organic waste. You can moderate that as needed. Ideally, you know, the restaurants that are doing a lot of organic waste can bring down their garbage bill to affect their rate. So in addition to this, so we've got these bundles set up, knowing that we need to stop the city subsidy of the rate at this point. Green Waste is open to looking at a couple of different ways to phase out of that subsidy. So what we're presenting to you today are two phase-in options. So both options are a 3-year phase-in, and it's important to note that there's the phase-in component of the rate, and also every year you'll have an annual escalator, which Ryan talked about before, that every year there's just going to be that annual escalator. So for the first 3 years, you'll have the phase-in component plus the annual escalator to get back up to the rate. Essentially, we've got two options here. Start at a lower initial rate for a smoother, initial phase into the new rates. That gets you at a higher rate at the end of the 3 years. Or option 2, start at a higher initial rate. It'll be a little bit of a smoother ramp up, but it does mean a higher initial rate. And I will show you how that impacts different rate sectors. This is the 3-year phase-in for your 64-gallon residential customer. That's most of the residents in the city have this service level. So this shows you that option 1 starts at the lower rate, but ends up slightly higher than option 2. Option 2 starts at the higher rate, but a little bit flatter of a slope up once we get to year 3. Now we're going to just show these options as they compare to some of the rates in the region. I do want to flag that it's always hard to do any kind of apples to apples comparisons with rates because bundles are made up of different components. Maybe there's street sweeping. It's really difficult. But this is meant to just give you an idea of where the rates sit against the region. I also want to flag that we are assuming a 5% increase, so that's your max increase in your contract, and we're assuming that for all of your neighboring jurisdictions so that we can try to see how those might escalate. So these are just trying to get a vision around what that might look like. This is your 64-gallon for a single family, and you see that from the jurisdictions where we're showing the rates there, that option 1 and 2 are the lowest. This is year 1. They remain the lowest in the region for year 2. And in year 3, you see option 1 and option 2 switch position, and the rates jump ahead of Citrus Heights. Now we'll walk through the same for multifamily and commercial. This is your multifamily version of it. We're looking at a 4 cubic yard garbage, option 1 and option 2. Oh, I do want to flag, you'll see that there are different jurisdictions selected for multifamily and commercial. This is because a great many of the jurisdictions in the Sacramento area have non-exclusive commercial services, so multiple haulers are competing for those customers. There are no public rates for those customers. So we had to pick the jurisdictions where we were able to grab those public city-approved rates. So that's year 1. Year 2, you see that's the option 1 and 2 flip there and goes ahead of Woodland, and that stays the same for year 3 for that multifamily 4 cubic yard. And now we'll do the same for a commercial 2 cubic yard bin. Option 1 and 2 stay at the lowest end. That remains the same for year 2, and year 3, it's just in year 3, option 1 and option 2 flip. And with that, I will give it back to Ryan.
All right, so thank you for listening to our presentation. I'm sure you've got a bunch of questions for us. Fundamentally, we believe Green Waste Recovery, out of 3 strong proposals, was the top proposer through RFP evaluations and interviews. So we're seeking your input on and a recommendation for the council meeting on August 19th to move forward with Green Waste Recovery. Before we get to questions, we did want to provide Green Waste a few minutes to come up and let you know a little bit about their background and what they can offer our city.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, commissioners. My name's Kevin DiVincenzo, Chief Operating Officer for Green Waste. I've been with the company for about 10 months now and 15 years in the industry in total.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Manny Gouveia. I'm the Vice President of Municipal Franchises with Green Waste. Thank you so much for having us here, having the opportunity to also present who we are as a company and what we've included in our proposal for the city of West Sacramento. Kate, I know you struggled with this, so the lower button. Okay. There we go. Okay. So who is Green Waste? Green Waste is not new to the industry, not new to solid waste recycling or organics processing. We have been around for over 40 years. We are a California-based company, exclusively Northern California-based company today. We have over 300,000 residential customers as well as 10,000 commercial customers throughout the region. We service over 20 jurisdictions and across 5 different counties. We are built on 4 core principles. That's service experience, environmental leadership, regulatory compliance, and community partnerships. Here is a breakdown of all of the communities that we service in Northern California, as well all of our post-collection facilities are. Obviously on the map, we know where we are up in the Sacramento region. although we are a new service provider in terms of this franchise agreement opportunity, we are not new to West Sacramento. So just down the road, Green Waste has its Florin Perkins construction and demolition processing facility, as well as a landscape materials yard. We have held a business license with the city since 2012. We've been a longstanding partner in the landscape program of converting lawns to drought-tolerant landscape materials, as well as providing compost to help meet the city's 1383 procurement requirements, which were referenced before. And we are just a longstanding service provider with a robust experience of cities that we've serviced for a very long time. You've heard chock full of all of the proposal enhancements and base services that we've included in this franchise agreement that's before you this evening. But again, I just really want to emphasize some things that we are offering as part of this opportunity. That is visiting every single commercial, multifamily, and government account within the first 12 months of service. This work will start well before the contract even commences on July 1st. We have infused a 9-month grace period where customers will not be receiving any type of fine, penalty, or fee for contamination or overage. Instead, this is all about education. This is changing behavior. And this program is also going to be offered to every single new customer that starts service from here on out. We have robust investment programs for both the community and the school system. The billing administration is going to be a very large undertaking. From bringing that from City Hall over to Green Waste, we are going to have a billing specialist who's going to be dedicated working here out of City Hall so that the current billing staff can work hand in hand with the Green Waste billing staff person. So any escalation that may arise will be handled in tandem together. And then again, 100% fulfillment of the city's SB 1383 compost procurement needs, which equates to over $80,000 a year.
Clicker.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Excuse me. We are proposing a very local approach to all of our functions in our operations. We've identified a seasoned transition team for the city of West Sacramento that includes experts from across all functions that will also be central to the talent acquisition process as we look to start this new contract. I'm going to speak briefly to the transition timeline to assure you of our comprehensive plan to provide top-notch customer experience. Our goal is to make sure that the impacts are so minimal that they're not even felt by your constituents. We're all about flexibility during this phase. It's important to stay agile during this process, keep communication pathways open, and collaborate closely with the city, the current incumbent, our vendors, in the local union hall. We have extensive experience with complex transitions in the municipality space. The proposed timeline that we've developed is carefully crafted with input from across all aspects of our business. Most importantly, we're hyper-focused in ensuring we retain all qualified employees who've been providing waste and recycling services to the city. I'm happy to report that we've had in-person meetings with operating engineers, the union leadership for the city of West Sacramento to ensure that all parties are in lockstep during a transition. I'm happy to report that we are in the final stages of entering into a letter of intent with the operating engineers that will basically ensure a seamless transition of the workforce and ensuring that our operations for this particular contract is represented by the current union leadership team. Before I pass it back to Manny, I want to reinforce one thing that I think is really important as we look through the decision-making process. The yard that we have identified to service the city of West Sacramento is dedicated to the city of West Sacramento only. Our administrative staff, included our customer service representatives, will be housed out of this location. Local yard focused solely on delivering a world-class customer service.
So So stemming off of customer service, we view this to be a two-way funnel with technical assistance. We're going to have the boots on the ground staff that are interacting with customers on an everyday basis, providing what I refer to as a concierge service of really ensuring that each multifamily commercial property specifically are compliant with 1383. They have the right sizing of the actual containers based on the volume that they're producing. They're exploring different ways of cost savings through the efforts of right sizing and minimizing contamination at the forefront through ensuring that the proper materials are going into the proper containers. This two-way funnel is directly linked between the local customer service center that is going to answer the phone and receive the inquiry from the customer and be able to direct all of that information to their colleague that is housed in the same exact office that will then go and actually provide this assistance to the customer at their place of business or site where they exist. There was a great overview that Ryan and Kate provided in our community benefits and diversion programs. Again, this was very strategically selected based on local nonprofits and organizations that are already doing phenomenal work and finding opportunities that Green Waste can aid them both financially but also programmatically, and how all of those things combined are going to impact the people of West Sacramento directly. So I won't get into the details here, but these were all carefully crafted, and we designed these programs in tandem with each of the organizations that you see up here right now. And lastly, again, it's incredibly important that we address the City of West Sacramento's relatively new climate action plan and how Green Waste can aid in the objectives that are set forth in that plan. This is through us having preferable purchasing commitments for environmentally and sustainable products. This is looking at our future site to be run entirely off of renewable electricity and maximizing the use of recycled water for the applications in our truck and maintenance programs. So again, I just really want to thank you all so much for hearing us tonight and for your consideration.
So at this time, what we'd like to do is open it to the commission for any questions that you have before we go to public comment and then come back for any final input and recommendations from this body.
Go for it, yeah.
I have a suggestion. Is it on? I have a suggestion. Can anybody hear me? Somebody that's technical up here. All right, thank you. Now, can you hear me? Thank you all for being here, everybody that's involved in this and the public in particular. I personally have a lot of questions, and I see a lot of public people gathered, and I'm wondering if we can allow the public to speak first instead of sitting around here while we go through our concerns.
Yes, that would be fine. Typically, we reserve this time if you have any clarifying questions, kind of factual based, just real quick. But I think to your point, yeah, there's a lot of community members here, and being able to shift over to them if you didn't have any kind of burning logistical questions or clarifications about the presentation or information, we could shift over to public comment.
Yeah, they are clarifying questions, but I think they're going to require a bit to answer.
Okay.
Does anybody have objections to that?
No.
No? Okay.
So if the public hearing is open?
Yes, we'll open it for public hearing.
Perfect, thank you. Our first is Mike Summers.
Hello, members of the commission. I'm writing, my wife and I, writing this statement. We strongly urge you to retain Waste Management as our city's waste service provider. Over the years, Waste Management has consistently delivered reliable, efficient, professional service to our community, ensuring that our neighborhoods remain clean and our disposal needs are met without interruption. Switching service providers introduces unnecessary risks, potential disruptions, and administrative burdens at a time when consistency and reliability matter the most. Waste Management has established a proven track record, familiar local operations, and a clear commitment to our city for the past several years. I ask you to support continuity and quality of service for our residents by renewing our contract with Waste Management. I've got 2 minutes left. I want to tell you, I'm a 61-year resident of this city. We have a myriad of problems in this city right now, everything from the worst roads in the region to homelessness to crime, lack of infrastructure. This is not the time to be making this change right now. You know, I took a quick glance at the locations that Green Waste services. I don't know of anyone in this room that could afford to live in any of those cities. They're really high-end cities up there. And when I'm thinking about it, my pocketbook, I put out 4 yard waste cans every week. Every week. Where's that money? Who's going to pay for that? Is it coming out of my pocket when I get 1 to start with and I got to pay extra? I have 4 every week with Waste Management that I fill to the brim every week. How much is that going to cost me? I haven't heard nothing about actual dollars and cents right here. So anyway, that's what I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Marissa Jeweler.
Good evening. My name is Marissa Jeweler, and I'm the director of the Yolo County Central Landfills Integrated Waste Management Division. And I'm here to address the commission on my concerns about how the RFP process was handled regarding our existing waste flow agreements between the city of West Sacramento and Yolo County. I do want to thank staff, as it appears the report you have before you today now addresses our concerns regarding the end disposal facilities, and that we wish for both organics and solid waste to stay within the county. But I'm here to ask that the commission take action by requiring the same language be added to the final city council staff report, asking that we put climate at the forefront of this decision. For reference, our landfill was sited in 1975 to be regionally located for all 4 of our jurisdictions, to minimize travel time and fuel costs to the hauler, and to be the most conveniently located facility to encourage proper disposal and reduce illegal dumping. This was solidified when the city incorporated in 1987, and our countywide integrated waste management plan was written and submitted to the state as partners. For the past 50 years, we've been partners with you and are proud of the work that we've done to extend the life of our landfill, which includes building the region's largest compost facility, helping West Sac with its 1383 goals, providing comprehensive household hazardous waste services, a construction and demolition facility that helps your builders meet Cal Green standards, and a very well-loved thrift store focusing on waste reduction known as the Blue Barn, just to name a few. Yolo Landfill was also recognized last year by the California Air Resources Board as the first and only landfill in this state to be carbon negative on its methane emissions. And I share all these accolades with you because it became very clear to us, but also a great surprise, that there was something amiss in the RFP process when city staff and R3 asked the entities bidding on this contract to provide rates for hauling the waste outside of this county. This seems to be in conflict with both your climate action plan as well as the Yolo County's climate action plan. For some quick math, Yolo County is exactly 12 miles from this location. The alternate facility that is being looked at is in Placer County, which is nearly 3 times the distance at 35.8 miles away. The reason this is important, as your landfill operator, 5,481 trucks came from West Sac to our facility last year. So you can imagine the carbon impact if you guys sent it to an outside facility. I thank you for your time, and I ask that you please consider your climate action plan when making decisions on this. Thank you.
Kathy Bailey.
Chair, may I interject briefly? Tristan over here on the left.
Yes, you may.
Sorry. We've apologized, forgot to read this. I don't mean to put a damper on things, but during our public comment, sorry, we were supposed to read this. We do, because public speaking can cause anxiety for some people. You hear this at our council meetings. We kindly request there be no applause, boos, catcalls, or other demonstrations after the speakers. I know it's an important topic tonight, so just appreciate you guys abiding by that. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Bailey, and I'm a resident of West Sacramento, and I'm a candidate for City Council District 4. I'm here tonight because I believe the proposed waste management contract deserves very careful city scrutiny before the city commits residents to a 10-plus year or potentially longer agreement. This isn't about whether we should have good garbage, recycling, or organic service. We absolutely should. The question is whether our residents are getting the best possible service and the best possible value for what we are required to pay. I'm recently posted about this because I have firsthand experience with our current provider, Waste Management. When Riva on the River, it is a 252-unit condo community over off the Village Parkway, was facing fines involving our trash containers, I contacted Waste Management personally. They responded immediately, met with me on site days later, listened to the circumstances and investigated the situation, and ultimately corrected the fines for everyone. There were legitimate circumstances that needed to be considered. We have approximately 21 units in one corner. We are individual addresses for 36 buildings. Each of us have to put ours in a corner. That's 21 addresses. No clear, consistent how they get the trash to give the fines. Many of our residents were getting fines based on a trash can that was clearly not theirs. People experiencing homelessness regularly go through our garbage Thursday night through Friday mornings. I'm getting calls at 2 a.m. in the morning going, Kathy, they are so loud outside throwing all the garbage on the ground. They take it from one garbage can and put it in the next garbage can, and we're getting fined for it. My point is that Waste Management is not perfect, but they resolved our issue immediately and waived all the fines for our residents because of the numerous issues that we were presented with. My point is that responsiveness and accountability matter when talking about essential public services, and so does cost. These costs for us will hit us not only individually, but as HOA members. Our costs will go from like $23 up to $52. That is extraordinary. And I understand, we all get it. Pools and everything have costs that go up. We understand that. But this carrier is going up considerably. Residents have experienced significant increases in water and sewer already. We need to be extremely careful with adding, so I ask that you please take the time to compare apples to apples, because what you have is not. Thank you so much.
Eric Lynch.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Eric Lynch, representing WM. We have had the pleasure of serving the West Sacramento community for over 40 years, as well as being part of the chamber for the past 54 years. Sacramento has had two clear messages in this RFP process. Keep costs as low as possible and maximize sustainability. Sometimes these two items compete with each other. With significant cost challenges that residents and businesses face today, WM feels like there's a premium on the rate side. Residents can look at the gas pump, look at their grocery bill, or even see their price increases on waters and utilities to see the pressure. They are faced with tough choices every day. WM prioritized price, as it was the only non-subjective measure on the evaluation process. It was 18% of the total 100 points. According to our calculations from the information provided of the recommended contract, it's approximately $115 million more than the WM proposal over the 10-year period. This does not include any of the ancillary fees like the large overage charges. It breaks down to about $17 million more for residential and about $98 million more for the commercial businesses. The consensus scorecard states WM has a very competitive rates across all customer sectors, strong value of programs related to rates. Conversely, the proposed hauler remarks state presented rates represent a significant increase across all sectors. Single-family dwelling rates are not outside the market norms, but multifamily and commercial are quite high. We also provided substantial solutions on sustainability efforts. The RFP asked to prioritize greenhouse gas as well as vehicle miles traveled. WM has the most efficient MRF, only 8 miles down the road. The proposal of your recycling material travels 28 miles to a good MRF, but is still less efficient than the WM solution. The rest of our proposal had many similar items required in the RFP that you heard from the other presentation. WM enhanced our at-your-door services, which is household hazardous materials that we pick up at your homes, as well as provided the highest value added services of nearly $1.9 million. With this new contract, there will be many changes: local customer service, hauler build versus city build, new services, new carts, and I urge you to make these changes with the drivers that know your streets and your community. I close with this. WM has been your partner for over 40 years. WM prioritized your cost to your customers. WM, we value our local union workforce that live mostly on this side. WM is your local company with national resources, and we are not a company that would be up for sale. And for these reasons, we respectfully ask the Commission not to move forward with a staff recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Joe Catalego.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joe Catalago, and I manage the contract with WM in the city, and I also serve as Vice Chair of the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce. Tonight, I'd like to focus on the public's voice. A solid waste franchise agreement is not just another contract. It affects every household, every business, and every multifamily community in West Sacramento. The decisions made through this process will impact rates, services, and environmental programs for years to come. Think about a senior on a fixed income or a small business owner facing rising costs. They may have different views on service levels, recycling programs, or rates, but they all deserve the opportunity to be heard before decisions are made on their behalf. Across California, communities increasingly view franchise procurements as major public policy decisions. Cities such as Oceanside, Oakland, Keene City, the town of Windsor have recently used public workshops, stakeholder engagement, advisory committees, and community outreach to help shape their processes before key decisions are made. Public input is how communities express their priorities. It helps residents and businesses identify what matters most and builds trust between government and the people it serves. Unfortunately, many residents and businesses are only now learning about the details of this proposed agreement. While there was an online basic survey, which the details haven't been provided to the public yet, there were no public workshops, no advisory committee process, no presentations to the business community, and no significant outreach effort asking the community what it wanted from the next generation of waste and recycling services in West Sacramento. This is concerning because public participation is most valuable before major decisions are made, not after. This issue is bigger than any company. It is about whether the people most affected by this agreement had a meaningful opportunity to help shape it. For that reason, we respectfully urge the Commission not to move forward with the staff recommendation tonight and instead provide the community a greater opportunity to participate in this process. Thank you.
Daniel Uribe.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Uribe, and I represent WM as the overseeing collection operations for servicing West Sacramento. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I'd like to talk about the service we provide, but more importantly, the men and women who provide that service every week. So at the end of the day, waste collection isn't that complicated, for us at least. Residents and businesses expect for their complaints to be heard, for their services to be on time, and for their bins to be delivered when they need to. Over the last 3 years, WM has sustainably serviced over 11 million collection stops in West Sacramento and the surrounding regions, while maintaining a 98% service reliability rate. When a service is missed, we recover it the next day. When a customer has a concern, we respond quickly. When an issue can't be resolved over the phone, as you've heard, we meet face to face because every situation is different and customer service is core to our values. As you review the proposed standards outlined in the agreement, I encourage you to recognize that these are not new requirements for WM. We already meet and exceed these standards every day. There's no startup period, no learning curve, or transition plan required. Our drivers, technicians, dispatchers, and customer service team deliver these results day in and day out. The people providing service are not strangers to your community. They're your neighbors. They worship here, they volunteer locally, they shop locally, and they raise their families here. Many have dedicated years of their career to servicing West Sacramento residents. And as the city has grown, WM has continued to invest in our people, the equipment, safety programs, and customer service to deliver the dependable service that the residents get every week. So tonight, I believe the question is not whether the proposed service standards are appropriate, because they are. The question is whether the residents of West Sacramento should pay more for services that they already receive today. WM has demonstrated the ability to consistently meet these standards with millions of successful services and decades of experience within this city. As families continue to face the rising costs, it's fair for residents to ask whether we are paying more to get meaningful services, and if not, then why? For those reasons, I respectfully ask the Commission to not recommend moving forward with the suggested hauler tonight. Thank you very much.
Angel Diaz.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Angel Diaz. I am the manager of the Recycling Center here in Sacramento. I am a City of Sacramento resident. I'm right across the river over here in Land Park. I do a lot of my shopping here in West Sacramento, as it's the next exit down the road from me. I run the recycling and transfer station over in Sacramento. A very efficient and well-run operation. I would say it is world-class. It rivals any recycling plant in the country. And I think that West Sacramento has the benefit of this facility. Other facilities that is being proposed to process the material from West Sacramento underperforms compared to the Sacramento plant. A large investment was made, and it's a great plant. Years ago, if you had told me that there's a plant that can achieve the type of diversion that we're achieving today, I would question it. But it's truly does what we say it does. The other item of consideration is the carbon footprint. The other facility is much further. More than twice as far, so that's an item to take into consideration. What kind of carbon footprint will be generated by taking the recyclables to a further facility? Another item that I'd like to touch on is the type of facility that we operate. We have multiple times achieved 0 accidents and 0 injuries on consecutive years, gone over 500 days, even close to 1,000 days, currently at 348 days. It's a very well-run facility, good operation, and I urge West Sacramento to keep the material local and close by at Sacramento Recycling. Thank you.
Denise Kopko.
I don't see people taking notes, so I'm not sure what this process is. Do you give us answers tonight, or do you send us answers, or do we just not get answers? But I'm going to run through my questions. I just went through the staff report, and one of the things it said was that franchise funds are being used to help fund, and that's a $3 discount to the residents at $1.9 million for the franchise fees. So the $2.7 million that's shown in this staff report under the contract, another $800,000, I would think would be able to also stay. Now, I know 3R has your retired sustainability manager on their staff, Paulina Rosenthal, so there's some institutional memory that says we used to always use franchise fees to reduce the rates to our customers. So it would be nice to continue to do that. I wondered about the panel that gathered that did this, and what jurisdictions did they come from? He said some from the city and some from outside, so I wondered who it was, and Marissa answered my question that the county wasn't included in that, even though that's where we take our solid waste, which reminded me that where does Green Waste take the solid waste? And in all of those cities that are in the Bay Area, how many of those are residential? So they have a lot of experience, but I couldn't find it. I went on their webpage and looked all around, and the librarian helped me because I'm not really good at this. I was concerned when Greenway said they're already talking about a letter of intent with Local 39. So it's kind of like, is this a done deal? And we're just whatever. I didn't understand the scores that were given, so maybe it needs to be dumbed down, like for 8th grade level or something. I don't know. I didn't get that. Someone mentioned about the yard waste carts, and I know I recently was before the city council on green waste, a tree and stuff, and so you want me to recycle my green waste, you want me to put in an organics cart, you're going to give me a 96-gallon cart that I'm not going to be able to push because it's too heavy for me. I currently today have 2 64-gallon carts, each filled half full, because that's all I could push out to the curb. They're too heavy for me to push. But one day, when I have no tree in my backyard, I do in my front yard, but no tree in my backyard. But one day this past winter, our neighbor's tree blew a bunch of branches down, and I collected and filled those 2 64-gallon carts with green waste in one day, picking it up out there by hand. I wondered, is it going to be an additional amount for an additional green waste cart, or do we just get those for free, and can we change it? And then there was a lot of things about they're going to give $100,000 for reimbursement for overseeing transition, and so then I was concerned about the billing, and it's already 3 minutes. So I have lots of questions, like 3 pages, about the billing, and quickly, one of them is, we paid a deposit for the city. Do we get that deposit back? And if I want to pay by cash, do I have to drive to Fruitridge? So, thank you.
Terrence McNamara.
Good evening. I'm Terrence McNamara from Atlas Disposal. I'm the general manager. Atlas was founded in the Sacramento region in 1998 in response to recycling mandates that came out that year. And 27 years later, we are still locally owned and operated independently. We're headquartered in Rancho Cordova. We run our operations base in Sacramento, and we employ hundreds of people who live in this region. Our routes, our customers, and our team are part of this community. We're not just passing through it. We measure our success over decades, not fun cycles, because the people who run this company live here, and our reputation in this region is our business. Last year, we completed a full-service transition for the city of Rancho Cordova, starting up a new residential collection from the ground up. We know what it takes to convert a city carefully and reliably, and we did it recently, not decades ago. That same local commitment shapes how we serve our customers day to day. And given the opportunity to negotiate that the lead proposer was given, we would also work towards rates that are far more beneficial to West Sacramento residents and businesses than those of the other respondent. And we can do that because of how our rate structure is built. We price to incentivize diversion at every step. Smaller trash carts are costing less. Larger organics and recycling carts cost less. That gives customers more than one way to save money by diverting waste, whether that means downsizing their trash cart or upsizing their organics and recycling carts. It's a rate structure designed to make the more sustainable choice the more affordable choice for every household and every business in this city. As this process moves towards a council decision, I'd ask you to weigh a simple question alongside the criteria you've already scored. Which of these companies will be here, accountable to the community, and offering rates that work best for West Sacramento for 10 years and beyond? Atlas is asking for the chance to keep earning that role. Thank you.
Grant Scruggs.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Grant Scruggs, and I lead Atlas Disposal's public sector programs, including our customer education and community outreach work. I've seen the evaluation, and I want to address it directly rather than talk around it. The scoring noted that our proposed education programs and reporting tools lacked detail and comprehensiveness. I understand why it reads this way, and I think it points to a real difference in how we approach this proposal. We didn't bring West Sacramento a cookie-cutter program because we don't think you should have to accept a program that's not built to the city's needs. As a local company, Atlas takes the care to develop and improve campaigns based off real data and feedback. As Terrence mentioned, 2025 was a major transition year for Atlas in the city of Rancho Cordova, where we began new residential service. We set ambitious diversion and education targets, and we used that transition to ensure that every element of our service was built around meeting local needs effectively and affordably. We pulled loads and sorted them to see exactly what was in the carts. We ran paid resident surveys to find out what misconceptions were held in the community. Then we built our education around the specific problems that data showed us. The results speak for themselves. We've designed custom postcards and billboards targeting the most contaminated items and the biggest misconceptions. We launched an innovative AI-powered contamination monitoring program that incentivizes residents through friendly education materials rather than steep financial penalties. We created a custom school recycling curriculum and visited over a dozen schools to teach classes. And just earlier this month, we hosted the first of its kind Recycle Day event, featuring a drop-off center, recycling resources, and local sustainability vendors, including West Sacramento's own Repair Cafe. These campaigns exist because Rancho Cordova's data showed it would work, not because they were just sitting on a menu of standard offerings. Same with reporting. We send that city more than 10 reports a month, and most of them aren't required by contract. They asked, and we built them. Diversion is even built into our pricing. Our smaller garbage carts are steeply discounted on purpose because we'd rather price a household towards the right behavior than fine them for the wrong one. Our work in sustainability has been recognized independently, including the Governor's Environmental and Economic Leadership Award, the Sacramento Environmental Commission's Environmental Recognition Award, Breathe California's Clean Air Award, and CalRecycle's Waste Reduction Award. I'd ask that the Commission weigh what has been scored against what our team actually delivers in the field, in local cities right now. I'm confident that our track record holds up, and we'd welcome the chance to bring that work to West Sacramento. Thank you.
Robert Chabert or Chabert?
Good evening. I'm not really sure where to start. I think we'll start with stability. Waste management's been around for how many years? No problems. I own several rental properties in West Sacramento. I'm on 3 HOA boards. I can hardly wait to go back to some of the HOA boards and say, if this contract goes through, we get to raise our rates for a lot of our homeowners, a lot of the renters. And we're going to award a 10-year contract to these folks. Has anybody looked at their corporate structure? On December 20th, you can give them a 5-year birthday card. Green Waste Recovery has got many LLCs. Several have been terminated. Several have been merged out. There's no stability there. Why are we doing this to our city? Before I went to law school, I was a deputy sheriff with Yolo County. I worked the streets the last night. We handed the keys to West Sac PD. I'm here to tell you, this is not what we voted for when we became a city. Please seriously consider this, and please keep waste management. Well, the other thing, too, they're talking about the fines they want to start kicking in. I'd love to see that one. Perhaps maybe their legal counsel ought to check out California versus Greenwood when it comes to when that trash hits the curb. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't read the first name, but the last name is Durst. Ani Durst.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Ani Durst, and I am one of the founders of the West Sacramento Repair Cafe. And we have been in West Sac for 3 years. We were modeled after repair cafes that started in Europe in 2009, and finally they've spread to the United States. And we really enjoy it, and we're building community at the same time as we're keeping things out of the landfill. So the way it works for people who don't know, we actually repair things on a monthly basis at Holy Cross Church in West Sacramento, and then people take them home and reuse them instead of throwing them in the trash. And we're very proud of it, and everyone who comes, the coaches who are the volunteers who do the repairs, and ourselves who are, and the people who come, everybody just has a good time and meets a lot of interesting people. I saw the same thing happen at the Atlas event that he mentioned last weekend. Alice and I were tabling there and talking about the Repair Cafe and trying to get one going in Rancho. Anyway, I wanted to say how much we appreciate waste management in West Sacramento. And we were introduced to them by somebody from the city, and we became part of a committee on diversion, and we help each other to really change things in the community in West Sac. And it has to do with us sitting down together and talking to each other and figuring out what we can do. So I'm really into community building and relationship building, and that's part of what West Sac is all about. People who live in West, I'm not from West Sac, I'm from Esparto in Yolo County though, and when I came to West Sac, I couldn't believe how so many people knew each other because they lived here for years, or they lived here and then they came back. And so that's the kind of relationships that are developed here. And that's the kind of relationship that a lot of people have with waste management. All you have to do is go talk to a few drivers. So anyway, I won't go on, but I just wanted you to know how important it is, this contract. And you just don't turn over and start with another company the next day. It's not the same. Let's see, what else? Oh, I can't even read my notes anymore. Anyway, thank you.
Tom Engel.
And my name's Tom Engel, longtime resident, over 35 years. I don't need another bill. I understand one bill is a lot more convenient. I don't need another bill. As far as the city subsidizing our trash If they want to reduce their costs and subsidies, there are many other programs that they could reduce to reduce subsidies, not on my back. The long-haul service that they have is absolutely ridiculous. How many more personnel they need to make sure my service is as consistent as it is today? As far as the costs go, why wasn't cost a higher priority in their RFP? I'm sure if they had to redo that again and looked at that, it'd be a lot more competitive. As far as Senate Bill 1383 goes, that's a state regulation. I understand that's what gets us into all these conundrums. I feel that the state issues are a woke ideology and it's being pushed on us, which is increasing a lot of our costs. As far as going down to one bulky pickup a year is absolutely ridiculous. What about those that need two? You know, just because the majority of them don't, doesn't mean that some need it. And how do they remedy that? Am I going to get charged another fee for that second pickup? It's absurd. With that, I'd like to suggest that you not move forward with the staff recommendations, and definitely reconsider cost as a higher priority in any future proposals. Thank you.
Judy Santiago.
Hi, my name is Judy Santiago. I've lived in West Sacramento all 64 years of my life, so I don't know if many people where Ms. Cockhood mentioned about how heavy the cans can be. I know that currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Waste Management, that they offer a free service for seniors to where you don't have to put your cans out. They will go behind your gate, bring your cans out, empty them, and put them back for you. And that is complimentary. Is the new company going to be providing that same service? Also, regarding the two free bulky waste pickups that we do get, I utilize I own a couple properties. I utilize both pickups for the properties every year. It has, now that's a little different process because you used to be able to call and make an appointment. Now you go online, which is fine, and you tell them what you're going to have, and then they'll tell you if they'll pick it up. The problem with part of that is until I clean out my garage or go to my rental property on a move out, I don't know what I'm going to have, but I want to get that pickup scheduled. But I definitely, we need at least two bulky waste pickups, and I want to know if this new contract is going to still have the complimentary service for seniors where they will put their cans out and put them back for them. Thank you.
There are no additional requests to speak.
All right, does anybody have any questions, comments? I know I have a lot. Okay, I think I'm going to start. So I do hear a lot of people from the public who seem to like own businesses and things like that with waste management. I just want to say my piece as a community member that I have problems with waste management all the time, like inconsistent pickups, broken cans. I can never get a hold of them on the phone. I don't have the luxury to sit on the phone for 45 minutes to try to get a hold of somebody. But that's my own personal issue. I just wanted to put my piece out there. But I do have a lot of concerns myself with this proposal and the fact that it didn't go out for any public workshops. So I've been on this commission since 2016. And so I went through the changes in rates for like our water and waste, other kind of waste, our sewer waste. And in that process, the community was engaged. I remember public workshops being held, people asking questions. And it was brought to the Environmental Utilities Commission several times. And we haven't had a commission meeting in over a year or more. So this never came to the commission beforehand to even talk about the concerns. Because like the point of the commission is that we're volunteers that come from the community and we're talking to our community members. And so we can help provide that community feedback. And so that didn't happen, which for me was a big concern. I really did like some of the sustainable aspects of this new contract that's in there. So I think there's a lot of really good things that Waste Management hasn't offered. I think it would be nice to have. I'm having been on this commission, I've heard the struggles with finances for the city, so having a little bit of reprieve from that supplement. But I do know that that is going to be a really big cost increase for a lot of families. And so even with the 20% discount, it's just really hard on families. Like where I live in Westfield Village. My community, I talk to a ton of my neighbors, I have a ton of friends in my community. And, these prices are hard. Price changes right now are really difficult when wages are stagnant, people are losing jobs because corporations are downsizing and things like that. So, we have to be cognizant of what's going on in our community and in the state. I also, on the flip side, work in environmental at the state. And so I understand the need for us to push sustainability. And that's really, I think, a really big, important aspect of what our next contract needs to be. But we also need to have that public input. Like where I work at the State Water Board, something this big would have never gone through without public input multiple times. And I think the city really fell short on this one for that. And then there's a couple other things that I did want to point out in the contract that I think that I'm not sure that the city really considered. So like, for instance, I get the lower, like the smaller bins and things like that and the reduced cost and having these different options. However, I don't think the city really considered that with increased education about, how to properly sort your waste, that you're going to have additional recycling and additional green waste. That should be the goal, like to have additional recycling and additional green waste. So providing one bin doesn't make sense because it's not encouraging community members to add to those bins. And so that's like just providing a smaller trash can. And my mom has one of those smaller trash cans and she's constantly putting trash in my trash can. So they're not really that great, I will say. And other people I know will put trash in my trash. So and again, we had a community member who said when it goes out to the curb, people put stuff in there. I've had that happen. I think the way that, and because I don't think it's very clear the way that they're going to do enforcement. The way Waste Management has done enforcement in the past has not been great. You just get, I just got in the mail, a notification. They were like, hey, this is not recyclable, but it is recyclable if you go to their website. And I've had that with the green waste I've been warned for my green reuse, the compostable bags and things. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed within our waste management, but I think there needs to be a little bit more careful consideration on that. And I think you're also going to get a lot of community outcry because we have had one provider for 40 years. And so not considering that, again, is a real big shortfall, I feel. And then, I got more. I have, so my question is about the hauling location. So is it in Placerville or Placer County, where they're hauling the waste, or are we sticking with YOLO landfill? Because I thought we were keeping our green waste and our recycling the same, and it was just the actual waste part.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So we currently have a contract with Yolo County for trash and organics that expires in 2027. It is our intention, Yolo County has offered just a straight copy and paste contract extension into 2029. We think that is reasonable. That's not just my decision to make, but there are huge benefits that come with Yolo County. They've been a great historical partner with us. As Marissa mentioned, the organics component is state of the art. So, just to address that concern, part of this whole process is exploring options. And so even if what we have now is a good option, we wanted to see what other haulers proposed. And while I can't make a promise tonight, it is our intention to at least recommend that we at least do the 2-year extension with the Yolo County Central Landfill because they have been great partners with us. So those would continue with trash and recycling. And then, I think Angel mentioned the waste management recycling facility, which I've toured a few times. It's a wonderful facility. We would be shifting from that facility to Cal Waste, which is in Galt.
Okay.
Yes. And so, one of the components when it comes down to emissions is that, Waste Management's proposal provided natural gas, and Green Waste was renewable natural gas. So it's not, while it is more emissions, it's not the same.
Right, it's not the
emissions
same carbon
portfolio.
footprint, yes, yeah.
I'd love everything to be 3 miles apart from
I know,
each other.
right, yeah.
But we have to, take the proposals that we got. So they also have electric trucks, and that is something we're exploring with them down the road. I do just want to make a point that I understand this is a massive undertaking. I've been working on this for more than a year now. I've been working for the city for 10 years. I'm a West Sac resident. I live in the State Streets. So me and my team and city leadership have been working, and we understand that this is not the cheapest option, and I take that seriously. And I also hear your comment and the comments of others about the public hearing component to it, and I'm willing to take that as serious feedback for what we can do to increase the transparency about this process.
Yeah, because I don't think I can recommend this to city council without having some public outreach. Because and even if we still go with the same contractor, it's just about educating the community on those differences. Like we heard in the public comments, some people were mentioning things that from having read the contract and having read the staff report weren't necessarily correct. And it's because it's confusing. That's not people's every day. So they're not going to know what it really means for them. And then on the flip side, educating why the subsidies are really hard for the city. We're generally a net zero city. We don't really have extra funds. And so it's important to explain where those funds that are being subsidized would actually go. What would they benefit? And there's going to be increased costs at some point because we do have, it's just the way it is, inflation and things like that. And we're all really struggling with it. But I think trying to educate people, getting input on where that middle ground could be, where the city could maybe lower the subsidies that they're providing, but not completely get rid of it. Trying to find the middle ground with the community is going to be really important because, we don't want people to not have waste pickup, and there's going to be people, I know people who their option would be, well, I don't pay for waste pickup. And then what happens then? They're going to go find a commercial business and throw their trash in there. They're going to put it in their neighbor's trash bin on the street. And it's not because they want to, it's they cannot afford it. And even with a low income subsidy with those raises, those are the things we have to consider.
Appreciate that.
All right, anybody else?
I'm holding off because everybody knows that I talk a lot. So I'm just hoping if the rest of you talk first, you'll cover some things that I can eliminate from my list of questions.
Go ahead.
All right, I can go ahead. So just to let you know, I don't think there's enough information for us because, as was mentioned, we're late in the process. Ideally, we would have seen the survey. We've seen the results of the survey. Ideally, we would have had some input into the RFP to help you create the requirements. Ideally, you see the responses from each of the bidders and actually see and compare and actually find a way to compare it apples to apples. This is what we get now. This is what's not going to happen. It's not in front of me. So I have to guess from the comments of what'll be lost. I did see, like, for example, there's, fewer bins. I do have a neighbor that uses 2-yard bins. I did not know until today that, hey, I can get up to 4, apparently. But he had 2 and he didn't have to pay for it, and he used it quite frequently. I used it sometimes because mine was full. But it's important to know that for some of these things, it's going to be a cost increase, not just the standard rate. And I think part of where the city has put itself in is the service of at some point there was a decision to subsidize. So according to the write-up, that was a city manager choice, not up to the council, this is where you're stuck with that subsidy. Because now if you remove that subsidy, people are going to feel it, and there was no process to actually put that subsidy in that's more public. There wasn't anything on my bill that said, hey, this was the X amount subsidized. That would have been great. I would have been informed. I did not know that. So for me, and for a lot of folks here, they would see a cost increase. And I think one of the things is I'm not hearing the selling point. So what I hear is there's going to be pain. I'm going to transition. I'm going to pay more. What am I getting for that pain? So if you can't sell it, we can't. If you can't sell it to us, you can't sell it to the city. It's very difficult. So if you work from that premise, is that what's the benefits, the tangible benefits? So I understand the environmental sustainability stuff, all that stuff. That's clear. We're required by law to do some of these things, but the practical output is that, I do appreciate folks from the city and the companies showing up, because we've had meetings where we've had nobody in the gallery. I appreciate this. Thank you. Show up more for other issues as well, because we do need that input. We know what we know, but we need to hear from everybody else. But this is a tough sell for me, and I don't have enough information. There's too many questions for me to keep going. I'd like to have another session to just have those questions, but maybe that's the forum that you need for the, as I've attended other meetings on the city that said, ask for various things, from traffic to construction to development plans. So there's been several of these throughout the city that I've attended. So I haven't had, and I'm thinking, did I miss a meeting? Because I didn't get to the RFP, and I'd never heard about this, and then maybe I missed a meeting. So I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. Apparently I didn't miss a meeting. So that's the difficulty I have right now for recommending anything. There's not enough information. There's just too many questions.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think, you said you were working on this for over a year, then you had over a year to engage the commission, and we've had several missed meetings since then. And we've never, we get a, notification of our meeting actually happening, and it's like the first we've heard of it. And so it's hard for us, it's good for the feedback, because we could have given you some feedback in advance during that development time. So that in turn would have also saved costs for the city in staff time, because, we're here, so we're available, and even though we're not technically we're like volunteers here right now, because don't technically have a term, but we still showed up, because it's important for our community. And so that's what we want to make sure that the community's being involved.
Yeah, I would like to articulate, this isn't a small decision. And I'm going to take a little bit of a risk and say that I have advocated that we have more outreach on this item, and that hasn't happened. So I'm sure there's a lot of good reasons why that hasn't happened. I'm sure there's good justifications. I believe in transparency. I've been part of the water sewer rate process. I've attended those workshops. I'm not sure why we didn't do the same. This is a big decision. So
I agree. It was a very poor decision on whatever management decided that within the city. So, yeah, agreed.
I think I'll go ahead and kind of get a few thoughts out and then hand it over to Suzanne. First of all, thank you, everybody, for being here. This process, public process, is important. So, yeah, just like Dana's saying, important for the commission to be engaged in it, important for all the rest of the constituents to be engaged. So this is a good start, although it's concerning that it's a bit 11th hour because the current contract is going to expire pretty soon. And so I really feel for the position that you're in, because I don't know what options you have in further delay, but, you know, let the voices be heard. I'd like to thank the city for their due diligence in having the performance review done in the first place, because this longstanding contract gets renewed and has carried on. And yeah, how many performance reviews have there been to make sure that this is really the best provider for the city's needs? And the city's needs are constantly changing. I mean, tremendously in the past, 15 years, and then very sharply here since COVID and current political winds. So at least we're doing the performance review. And I'd be curious as you know, a piece of information that we might get if we do get to explore this more. What were the driving factors? What were the outcomes of that were the driving factors to put out the RFP? Maybe it was touched on in the materials. Again, haven't had quite enough time to really digest it all. But if that could be clarified and made simple for you know, the constituents to just kind of compare. Well, why did we do this? What were we looking for? It certainly wasn't going to be a rate lowering, because that's just not how the world works. Everything is going up, and so it's really tough. Again, for you, I feel for you, for the city. I'm a state worker myself. I feel for you know, the folks who have to make these hard decisions, because you cannot change the fact that rates are going to rise for services. Hopefully we could just get maximum benefits and ensure that we're meeting our statutory requirements for, you know, through those providers. So there's a lot to consider, and I just kind of feel with the comments and the materials that it could be clearer for us to really compare. And I know somebody mentioned it's extremely difficult to compare apples to apples with services we've had, services we need that we haven't been getting, and between the proposals, really kind of vetting those out and teasing them out to see what's really in there and what's possible. And then, so things like how large of a factor, a contributing factor, you know, in the scoring was the contractor billing, for instance. How much is that estimated to save the city, and how heavily did that weigh? How heavily did the sustainability and diversion and the climate action plan assistance, those types of things, how heavily did that weigh? What are our driving factors in changing providers? It would be a little helpful to hear more on, I guess. The public survey, I agree, Peter, that would be useful. And I'm just sorry that I missed it. I mean, I might have participated. My memory's not that great, but I may have done it. And, you know, curious, did you have sufficient feedback? Was it sufficient enough to incorporate? Do we need more feedback? So did other proposals offer call centers too? You know, did they offer an app? Did they offer the types of outreach we were seeing that were really shining in Green Waste's proposal? So those are some little more clarifying details that would be really, really helpful to, I think, make this body confidently say, yeah, this sounds good. Nobody likes higher bills, but it seems like this is a reasonable way to go. We just don't, we could use more details, I think. And then the bin thing, I think, is a big deal. It's a little concerning. Yeah, I don't, that whole topic feels like, getting less and paying more. And not only that, but is it going to be sufficient? Are we going to have sufficient bins for our trash and recyclables? That's just a basic thing that I feel like people are concerned with. So
Okay.
it's a lot of stuff to.
Yeah. So I'll see if I can address each of those. The first is, we are presented with a unique situation where we have an incumbent who's also a proposer. And one of the goals we had throughout this RFP process was to be as objective as we could. So we had to put aside all of the pros and cons and all the good and bad and the long history we've had with waste management, and we had to try to view them as a proposer just like the others. And so that meant, so the survey was about, how are you experiencing your current hauler contract? What are the things that you're looking forward to? And so, we are trying our best to remain objective and not to try to paint WM in a certain light or not. Really, the motivating factor for this was we've had them since 1987, and it seems worthwhile to go out and see what else is out there and treat all three proposers almost as if they're new to us. So that's one element.
Yeah, can I just say one thing? I just wanted to also, you reminded me to touch on that, the long relationship and the good aspects there, because some, of our neighbors have talked about that. While it's amazing and wonderful and necessary and important for community to have that with the businesses that serve us, we have to remember that there's other factors that the city as kind of a business or municipal business has to consider. And so you don't have the luxury, like you're saying, to just rely on your nice friendships with this longstanding contractor, and that cannot be our expectation either. So, yeah. And also, we have to remember that change is hard, but there'll be new people. And like this proposal mentioned, there's this concerted effort to maintain a lot of the our neighbors who do this work and employ them. And we can make new friends with a new business folks. And so we're all, we can do that. We're capable of that. So let us not allow, too much of that past friendships to influence this business decision.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it is important, like I said in my presentation, large and small contracts, we're a city. We don't want to be accused of any kind of nepotism. Not that it would have been, we had the ability to extend an additional 5-year contract, but, competition, seeing what's out there is important. Even if we, at the end of this process, had WM at the top, right? That would have given us better justification for staying with WM. But through this process, Green Waste ended up on top. As far as the bins and carts and the bundled service and so historically, currently, you have 1 trash, 2 recycling, and 4 organics. And my team did a deep dive into the data to see what the actual usage is of those. And we found that 90% of all customers throughout the years, it's not just last year, we looked year after year after year and found that more than 90% used the standard. And so we did not want to enter into a new contract with new rates and have everybody pay for 4 organics carts and then have less than 10% of people participate in them, because that would create inflation and would, increase the rates even more. And so that's how, we tried to use data to see what people really are using and to right size the service in order to get the rates. But of course, there's going to be people who use 3 organics carts or 2 organics carts or 2 recycling carts. Those are in the minority. So that's just a decision we had to make. And, we're here to elicit feedback from the public and from you. And I'm hearing greater outreach is needed and concern about the bundled service. So we'll keep those into consideration.
Did you also consider, when I talk to people about like sorting trash and things like that, did you consider that like education through like Waste Management has been pretty poor about like where things go? Like they don't do outreach to the customer, you have to initiate the outreach. And so I think, most people aren't going to call their Waste Management services and have them do that. So, I mean, I've never seen a flyer on my door or anything like that. But I mean, there's that to consider too, because like I know, like there can be personal education, peer to peer, neighbor to neighbor. I've learned things from my neighbors. I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. And then I go to the website and I look at it. But again, it's like trusting that people are going to take the initiative to do that. And, people don't always have the time and luxury to do that kind of thing. And so we have to consider like the outreach needs to be, the information needs to be available there, but the outreach actually needs to go to the communities. And so if you're considering how many bins somebody needs based on what we've had in the past, like that doesn't mean, I'm sure that not every neighborhood is the same, but like I know that like I've seen a lot of things put in trash cans, like trash cans overflowing and things like that. I know some of it's people don't care, and then some of it's going to be education. So it's like trying to judge that too before making these decisions. And again, if there had been public outreach and people could come to workshops and there were multiple ones and we had multiple commission meetings, those type of things could have been considered in those decisions too. Because when we look at pure data, as a data-driven scientist myself, I know, and as someone who manages large programs, I know that data is a very important key, but also public input is another very important key. And sometimes your data doesn't provide you the full picture because you've collected limited data. And so I think that's where we're seeing that, and that's where you're seeing people get really frustrated and like not understanding where that contract comes from. So it's like you could have, like for me, if Waste Management improved some of the things I had a problem with, I'd be totally fine with them. Or if Green Waste had it, that's great too. I mean, they have some really good services that it doesn't appear that Waste Management provides, but Waste Management has services that they don't provide. So again, the apples to apples thing is so important for the community, because expecting a community to go and read a staff report and figuring out a contract, that's, it's just not, it's not a good public outreach. Like that's, and I think we've just been completely lacking here on that. And I'll be a broken record about that, so.
That reminded me of a note that I made too. I really kind of commend the focus on the commercial client needs that Green Waste was talking about in their presentation. And I was curious about what the kind of single home kind of transitional outreach looks like, because that would be nice.
Yeah.
And I have called Waste Management to ask them what goes where.
I know, right?
But,
Yeah, I've had to call them before, yeah.
I mean, like, where do the mail cartons go, please?
So as Manny showed, they provided us what we thought was a detailed transition plan, and part of that transition plan would be monthly meetings with city staff, as well as staging workshops, having community events, providing robust outreach material delivered to the door about this very large transition that's happening. And then there were some other things that were mentioned recently that I just wanted to come back to. We are put in this difficult position of knowing our experience with our current hauler, both the good and the bad, and then working on this RFP, right? And so, one thing that we're proud of is that we really believe the new contamination and overage program with Green Waste really will be human-centric, will be behavior-centric. And so we also are putting in a pilot period in the beginning so that they can show us how their program is going to run. And if we're convinced that it is behavior-based and human-based, then, we will let that program start. And if we ever get to the point where we think it's not that, we have the ability as the city to pause it. So, we want to make sure it's education-based. We are required to do some element of it, and so we spent a lot of time working on that component.
When you sent out the RFP, did you include all those details, like, to allow for, I think I really commend the city for going out to bid because I think it's an important process. Like I myself manage a long-term contract with a contractor at the state, and it's hard when you're considering, do we have to make changes? Do we have to leave this contractor? And it can be a scary process too. But I think it's good to have the input so you can see where the differences lie. Something that was good in 1987 is not good for 2026. That's just the reality of the situation. It's so different. We have so many different laws. But I think it would behoove us in that RFP to really, and I didn't see it, so I don't know if there was really an outline of what the city was looking for. Like if that scoring metric was in the RFP, like if you're utilizing a scoring metric, I would assume that would be in the RFP so that they know like, oh, our services have not been sufficient to what the city needs. So let's consider how we can add those services in. Because then that also gives your current vendor the opportunity to improve their services if the city has made changes, if communities have given feedback, and it sounds like that wasn't included in the RFP. So, but I don't know because I haven't seen it, so.
So I can address the RFP process. So it's a kind of a combination. It's a little bit of a back and forth where we have to contemplate what we would want in the new contract, because they need direction. But then we also are asking each of them to kind of wow us a little bit and say, okay, these are the things that we want, but maybe you're aware of something that's even better, or there's a way of doing it that's even better. And so, whether it was the billing or other components like a mobile app or the local call center, those were elements of the RFP. And so it's not just Green Waste that address those. The point is that we were most impressed by the way Green Waste addressed them. It was more detailed, it was more professional. We just thought it was the best response to what we let out. The evaluation criteria was part of it? Yeah, so the evaluation criteria was part of the proposal. So they knew the things that we were going to rank them for. So, that's also a component. After we received all the proposals, we really did, I had dreams about this stuff, I do take this seriously. And that doesn't mean that everyone's going to agree with my decision, but I haven't been doing it lightly. And there's certainly, I'm trying to get the best solution, checking all of the boxes. Rates obviously are, during our negotiations with Green Waste, rates was a major thing that we went back and forth with them on. But we also have to think about sustainability, operations, customer service. And so all of those things together led us towards Green Waste.
Well, and again, so I think you did a great job in this report. I think there's been a lot of consideration put into it, but that shouldn't have been all on you. That's another shortfall of the city. That should have been, the public should have had that input. So you're not the one sitting up at night worrying about all of this stuff. I know as a public servant, you sit there and you worry, did I do the best thing for the public? Did I make the right decisions? Because that is the type of person who is a public servant. That's what they want to do. And so I think, and I'm kind of scolding the management here, is that they didn't provide the resources for you to have that input from the city. So, I think, I don't think any of us think you guys did a poor job or didn't really consider this. I think that you weren't given the resources to consider everything fully.
Why don't we wrap up our comments and then we can decide a path forward? Because it sounds to me like we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we're all
on the commission side. As I expected, my colleagues have raised some of the same issues that I have a concern with. And to reiterate, we're not. Well, let me even reiterate that without reiterating it. Change is hard. And there's been a lot of change, too much change for some people. But I have to agree with some of the decisions that have been made. And one of them is reviewing contracts. Sustaining in government, there's a habit of continuing to contract with the same contractor over and over again. And what it does is it minimizes the number of new creative ideas that enter into the process, and it also can inhibit market entry. So I am in favor of re-review and not constantly updating these contracts. I think that your approach to handling all the submissions as an objective, almost first time interaction with each of them is appropriate, because all of these companies have had lots of laws to come up with, and we haven't even begun talking about SB 54 and how that plays into, sorting in MRF and market. So, and 1383 has been a roller coaster of, who does what and when's it going to happen, et cetera. This is all since like 589, whatever, 3 decades ago when everybody was required to reduce their landfill waste. So I get that. I think the companies have done their best to respond to the RFP. And I think there's nothing in the contract that I really object to. I think what's been detailed is the program that was presented to us by Green Waste Recovery. It is excellent. I mean, I like all the features of it in terms of the outreach and the involving the schools and those kinds of things, and on the ground and direct communication with the customer as opposed to third party interaction with the customer. It's another way to better understand what customers need. And what they expect, and what they don't know, what they do know, and what they don't know. So I have no objections to that. I think some of the things that have been touched on, I meant to say this, but I didn't. Full disclosure, I'm also chair of the Yolo County Climate Action Commission. So I come with a different perspective from other people to this project, and in some cases more holistic. And my intent and my interest is in changing culture, which is what the education and the consumer interaction helps us to do, and changing the systems. And these are dynamic systems that are complicated. So what my hope in this arena of climate change, climate response action, waste management, is that we're pushing, in my vision, towards circularity, so that these systems are more holistic, less siloed, and more interactive and mutually beneficial than they have been in the past. And that's where my concern with our relationship with Yolo landfill comes in as well. They are longstanding partners. They are municipal partners. They're not a private entity. It's not a private contract. These are in this region where both the city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento have a climate action plan, and many of our adjacent jurisdictions also have climate action plans. We've also developed a regional coalition among all those jurisdictions to see, rather than proceeding on our own as an isolated jurisdiction, how we can interact in a way that makes us all more successful. And I don't like to see those bonds broken or interfered with. So that was a concern of mine as well. Insofar as what was provided to us and to the public, a staff report and a 193-page contract is a difficult piece of information to digest in 4 days that span a weekend. So, and there are a lot of moving parts within it. And sometimes you need to break the parts apart so that people understand them within the parts, and instead of jumping to the conclusions, which is we're going to bundle this and this is going to be long-term price flow and the ways that we can adjust and transition into the new rates. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit more distinct, and I think that's what my colleagues are talking about in terms of us not having enough information about how these comparisons were made, what the apples and oranges, confabulations and how they were dissected in order to create some sense of how much more is it going to cost, how much more are we going to get, and what is going to be the impact among the various segments of the customer base that we are concerned with here in the city. And so it's just difficult, all these charts, to try to break them down and understand them, and the carts and the 96 gallons and the 64 gallons. And I mean, it's a lot. And so there needs to be some way to take into consideration how you present that information. All of us are either current or former state employees or technical folks. But this is, information that also needs to be understood by the public. And so I think there's some concern about doing that. There's been some mention that I also agree with, and that is that this commission, in my experience with it, is underutilized. Each of us, we come from different neighborhoods. We are a conduit and a liaison with our communities, or we hope to be, at least I hoped to be when I signed up. But, not having, and I've been on other commissions where this, in the city, so I don't know why it's fluky with this commission, but I've seen the RFPs before they go out, and there's some of these inputs that probably could have provided during that process if we had had a chance to look at that and talk about what's going into it, what are we asking for, why are we asking for it, and in what format will the information be presented back to us by the applicant. So I think the questions that I have, they become quite technical because in going through the contract and trying to understand things, and let's talk about I did want to acknowledge a comment by Atlas, and that is that the process of co-creation is really where it's at now in public engagement. We just don't hit the public with, here it is, we thought about it, and this is what we decided, so you live with it. It's not done anymore if you really want a community to feel empowered and engaged. And so having an iterative process that's exposed to the public within that process is the way that you get that co-creation and that input that allows you to reflect on some of the concerns that individuals have in the qualitative data side, not the quantitative data side, because you got to interact with them. So to the powers that be, whoever decided not to do public engagement on this one, please take that to heart. That's part of the culture that we're trying to establish in systems change. I'm real confused about the materials recovery facility. I just could not sort it out from the materials that were provided. It looked like it was a TBD. It was like, oh, we're going here and we're going there, but it's to be determined on where the MRF is going to be and whether it's in Galt or another place where something else in the contract referred to it as being in another city. It's like, okay, if we're going to really do apples to apples, like, is it in Lodi or is it in Galt? It says both things in the materials that we provided. And does that fit into our regional view of trying to keep anything? It's like in the food sector, we talk about local food because, and Annie will appreciate this, good to see you here. It's like if we can reduce the need to transport food up and down highways, et cetera, that in and of itself is going to cut our VMTs. So all that circularity that that I would like to see built into these systems, it's not there yet, and supply chain is important. But it's a methodology that I think we're all getting used to as these principles are becoming more and more emphasized in the work that we have to do to create a sustainable economy. So that was, I think, rather than going through my whole list of questions, what I'm going to say is that I didn't hear that anybody sitting up here is ready to advise you to take this to the city council on the schedule that you have without having first submitted it to some kind of public workshop process that enables the public to not only ask their questions, but have them answered by the staff and your consultant. That's it. I'm done.
Really?
I am.
Sorry, I did all the talking this time. Okay, so I guess, do you guys have any other comments?
Yeah, I was wondering, going back to the process, you go back through it, it might actually trigger a different RFP. I mean, if the concerns are completely different than you had anticipated, and some of the scoring and some of the weighting is completely different, I mean, to appease the process, you might have to go back and do another RFP. So that's the thing you need to consider.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be a challenge. Normally, if you're going to be transitioning haulers, the best case scenario would be a year and a half. So if council did choose green waste on August 19th, that would be much less than a year and a half and less than a year. So, about 8 months, 10 months. So,
well, that's a question of the short term versus the long term. So you do two solutions. It said, can I extend the contract by a year, let the RFP go through? Is that a possibility? Those are things that you guys can determine and work with the companies right now. Because my concern is that you go through the public process and the requirements and what they're looking for is completely different. And then if you go back to the same RFP, you don't have the responses you need to actually say this group won. I mean, that's the outcome of that thing. I don't know. I mean, that's the high risk you have with sticking with the RFP if the public comment is completely different.
I don't imagine that the city would need another RFP. The way it sounds to me is that the public, at least the vocal public that we're hearing, is that we just don't understand some things and we have some concerns and we just need a little clarity. I mean, that's not everything, but I feel like that's a large part of what I'm hearing. Like, well, what about this and what about that? It doesn't mean that you didn't consider it. It doesn't mean in serving on this commission, I have a lot of faith in you and your staff and what you've shown. And I don't know that we're a body that is put together to kind of do your job. There's employees to run the RFPs and whatnot, but I think perhaps in the process of more engagement, if it's possible before this decision is made, it could bring clarity to the constituents and therefore buy-in. Because the truth is, yeah, it's not the way. It's not the ideal. We like the engagement. We like the participation, but the public doesn't usually decide what the contracts are. They give feedback for technical consideration and thoughtful incorporation, but we hire staff to kind of do that work. So yeah, I don't imagine that another RFP is necessary, but I think a certain amount of communication to make the constituents feel more comfortable that these price hikes, escalations, are, one, unavoidable and necessary, and two, will not reduce the services. The basic level of, I want to fill my bins and I want it taken away consistently, with this nice, employee that I can have a relationship with, and all these other things that you've heard, kind of baseline desires from residents. If you could, enlighten and clarify some of those concerns that we have heard, I think would just go a long way.
I appreciate that.
I consider, I kind of agree with you both. Like, I think that from what I hear from community members and what I'm hearing from the different contractors, I think that there's, out of the 3 vendors that you guys have reviewed, I think we probably have who we're going to have, right, is like one of those 3, but maybe it was just that staff are looking at it in a different way than the community would look at it. And so it might be that we end up with the same decision or a different decision. And I think that's really it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be rushing the process, and we should be considering, are there short-term solutions for contracting? Because I agree that is something that the staff should consider, because that would allow the community, it would allow the community not only time to digest it, again, because we've had the same hauler since 1987 or whatever, but also it makes the community have more trust in the city because they're not feeling rushed into a decision. And I think what I'm really hearing from all of my community members here is that they don't trust that the community's viewpoint was taken into consideration. And I think that is the bottom line. And that's where you're going to get lots of pushback. You're going to get lots of complaints, and no matter what the different decisions are, like the different views, like people have different experiences and have different views of how they view a vendor. I think the core, or the crux of it, is the community isn't trusting the city right now because the community didn't get to have any input. And like was said, we live in a different political time where community input is highly valued and highly important. So I think that's.
I would maybe go a little more crystal, building on that, not just the views of, that their views weren't considered, is their basic needs. Like I was mentioning, like, I need this, I need these bins, I need it to be this, because that was the biggest one. Cost and literally like space and the physical putting out my stuff. Those are the 2 biggest things. And I think that cost is inevitable. It's just a super sad, unfortunate piece of life. Like, costs are just going up and going to go up, and we really cannot expect our city to continue to subsidize our services, and this is the second one I've heard of. Maybe there's other services being subsidized that, they did. Of course, they can't sustain that. But I think if the residents could understand, well, we want to go with this proposal because they're going to give us this suite of services. Your baseline is still there. I think if we could just hear that, your baseline is still there. And I think I'm kind of hearing that it is, because what I'm hearing is that, going back to the bin thing, because isn't that a big part of it, that the data that the city culled shows that the majority would be fine with what is proposed in these bundles. And the thing is, whoever we get, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to satisfy everybody. We're not all the same. We have different bin needs, and some people will pay more than they want to, because that's what that contract is going to give. But yeah, you have to really strive to meet the city's needs, meet your basic, city's needs and residents' needs, and go with the majority. That's the democracy.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's
and I do want to re-articulate that, the bundled service that we came up with was one that we put into the RFP based on the data that we did. So, all three haulers responded with, this is what our prices would be for this bundle in response to what we, thought was the most appropriate amount. And all three of the haulers are going to be an increased cost above what is happening now. So while I'm not ignoring the fact that green waste would be higher in some sectors and some services, no matter who we choose, there's going to be frustration because there's going to be an increase in cost. Right. And we believe fundamentally in shifting billing over to the hauler. There are a lot of benefits to that, and that includes, the city not, having a subsidy anymore.
And I'll state for the record that I also am very supportive of keeping our refuse, utilizing our local municipal services for that, is what I'm hearing, that could change. And I also reiterate that whatever contract is decided on will have its pros and its cons, and that in, kind of scoring and deciding on the best, you might take one proposal and say, well, it's not the best in this category, but overall, and that's the way you have to do it. So using that as an example, if this proposed hauler is taking the refuse further, that's what kind of a negative, but then you factored in the RNG, so it's not such a negative. And again, overall, big picture, we have to do that.
So it sounds like the consensus I'm hearing is disappointment with the lack of communication and outreach for the rollout of this RFP, a desire that extensive outreach to the community happen before the August 19th meeting, or shifting the meeting to September if needed in order to make sure that the community has the opportunity to voice their concerns before this goes to council.
Yeah, and get some clarification.
Yeah,
Yes, well, and I think, city council is just going to go through the same thing that we're going through right now if they try to adopt this on August 19th. So, I think they're well advised to put this out to the public a little bit before they take it up and do a revision. I think there are circumstances under which your deadlines might be met in terms of being able to affect a transition you may need a supplemental RFP to your existing 3 respondents. One of the things that I'd like to see some more options on are in the right sizing arena with, my problem with the bundling is that those are all too big for me. I don't use those. I don't even put my stuff out every week. So if we're really going to reduce waste, then how do we incentivize that? And packaging and those kinds of things. I mean, they're all interconnected. So I think that we are all agreed that that would be the best recommendation if the city puts off action on this item and opens it up to some public workshops so that the public can be heard and have their questions answered.
So I wanted to make a couple clarifications before it sounds like we may be breaking here soon, and a couple questions for you guys as well. Just to reiterate what Ryan mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of talk about existing service, that base service, what was done in the past compared to what's in the future. Through an RFP process, it's a very strict protocol how we do it. Attorneys are involved. They run through everything. It's kind of like our hiring processes here at the city. It's very structured. So again, the review panel, which I was not on, was unable to look at what's happening on the ground, what the base rate is, because this is for the future year's contract. So it was basically resetting everything to 0. And then we had 3 proposals going in. So the rates, that's what Ryan meant about the rates going up, because the existing contract, it will be ending. Those rates will be ending. So just like the other 2 proposers, WM put out new rates. And so the rates are going to increase. The city's subsidy most likely is going to no longer be in effect. So people will feel that pain. Absolutely. The bundles can change. There's flexibility there. We've talked about kind of the standard bundle, but people have the flexibility if you have a need for 4 green waste bins, you're able to get that. That may come at a cost, but folks who don't need that much are not paying extra because essentially those things are built into the current rates right now. One other thing, Ryan, I think with the RFP, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did the survey. How many respondents did we get to the survey? What kind of information did we get on that? That was before my time.
Yeah, so we received it was through Facebook. We did an online survey, and we received about 1,000 responses, asking people what they thought about the current hauler, things they liked, they didn't like, and things they'd like for in a new contract.
Thank you. And then a question for the commission is, talking about a new RFP or a supplemental RFP, what information are you guys hoping that we'd be able to ascertain from a new RFP and that feedback? What additional information would we receive from the 3 proposers through, let's say, a supplemental RFP?
Well, like I just said, let's talk more about right sizing. But what we're really saying is you need to hear from the public.
Yeah.
Not from us.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, I mean, we can have input. That would be lovely. I'm sure we would love to sit here and have another public forum where actually their questions are answered. So we can be part of that conversation, but we didn't get the materials any faster than the public did. So, it's a lot. But we also have questions just trying to understand it. Like I said, my thing about the recycling processing, it's like, has that decision been made or has it not been made? Or how is it going to be made? And what criteria are going to be used to make it? Is it in Galt or is it in Lodi? Is it,
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah, so I don't, like I was saying, I don't imagine another RFP is immediately needed. I think it's like too soon to know that. The evident thing is that the public wants more information before they're comfortable with it, because there's literally, I think, a fear that not only are they going to inevitably pay more, which that can't be changed, but that their services will somehow be cut, but they kind of go hand in hand. Like, I'm getting less, I'm paying more, and then if I want the standard, like if using as many bins as I'm used to or whatever, then I have to pay even more. So just, I think they need a chance to ask questions, and along the way, you might get more information to maybe inform what the final contract looks like, the final services offered looks like.
And more clear education too. That's the thing. Just like I read technical reports all day, every day, and like some of this, it was very contradictory. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I was confused. Like, are we going to a different waste facility? Are we going to Yolo County? Like, that wasn't clear. So I mean, those type of things are what concern the community. And like we said, we're 4 people out of a community of 50,000 people. That 1,000 people is what, 2%, right? So it's like, or whatever that is, whatever. Don't ask me to do math off the top of my head. I should be able to do it. But but I mean, it's, it's a small percentage of our community. And does everybody use Facebook? I mean, we were emailed the survey, I think, if I remember correctly. So I know I took it, but like not everybody's getting that. Like, was there outreach other than just like Facebook posts, like those, to get that community feedback?
I was just hoping to clarify the facilities piece. So what Green Waste proposed was to take recyclables ultimately to Cal Waste, which is in Galt. Why it's confusing is they also listed the facility where they would be transferring it to. So that's to consolidate it in the semi-trucks so that there's more truckloads going in one truck down to Galt. So that's why those 2 facilities, both would be used. We'd go to L&D landfill for transfer and consolidation to then go down to Galt. And then Green Waste's intent would be to figure out backhauling, so they're bringing material back up. So prioritizing, trying to not have an empty truck come back up.
Yeah,
Does that
I
help?
understand the backhaul. what I didn't understand is, when's this decision going to be made? Because it sounded both in the staff report and in the contract that it hadn't been made yet.
That would be Green Waste's proposal. So that would be Green Waste's path. I think so there's no decision in terms of how they propose that would be the path.
Okay, that didn't come through.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
So the city is still making that decision? I'm still totally unclear about like where the YOLO landfill comes in this. So it sounds like we're extending that for like 2 years or whatever.
Well, there's three
facilities.
types of
Yeah,
things.
there's the recycling.
We're using yellow for 2.
Just for, okay.
So it's, where do you take the stuff that needs to be separated and then sent its merry way into the marketplace as either corrugated or paper or, cans or those things? That's what the MRF.
That's, yeah. So the city has the agreements with the county for the landfill and compost. All proposers were asked to say where they would take the recyclables. So that's where that kind of very flexible piece was. But outside of that, the city has the agreements with the county for disposal and composting.
Yes, it does, which the staff report infers will be continued, but we don't even know that for sure. There's no commitment. So I think that was the other concern, and it reflects the comments that were made by the YOLO landfill representative.
But that's outside of this contract.
Well, and that's
right?
that's what's a little difficult because it's both independent and connected. So, we're
It's complex.
the contract.
The whole thing is complex.
Yes,
We're not, transparency is transparency. You can't redefine it. Either the process was available to the public or it wasn't, and it wasn't. And so there's no amount of justification you can provide us here for the decisions that you made, which we've already said. We have confidence in your ability to make these kinds of decisions. We want to be part of it. That's all. That's all they're saying.
So I would say tonight, one thing you guys said is getting questions answered. That's a big reason why we came here tonight, was to provide that clarity and
to us.
Suzanne, yeah.
Not to them.
Well,
No, this is for the public. Right?
Each one of them, I can guarantee you, has a specific question about how does this work and what does it mean for their bill?
Well, I think that was one of the issues I have. There's questions I don't even know because I haven't seen the rest of the responses to the RFP. So I have one, I can see that, and I can't compare. So if I'm being asked to ask questions about this recommendation, I don't know if it's the best recommendation because I don't see the comparison. So I don't see the other ones. So I can't say, oh yeah, great, go for it. This looks like the best one. And again, it's an issue of timing because I'm going to have a ton of documents probably. And it's like, I might have questions like, what does this mean? So this, again, the process that people mentioned was like, you should have come to us to just the RFP, you got responses, read it. What do you think? Those are things that we would have had questions like, what does this mean? What does this mean? So that's where the question, this process of what questions do you have would have been great. If you're asking us for a recommendation to move forward, we haven't gotten to the questions yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, and part of our job when we're hired, like when we're appointed, we're not even elected officials. We're just community members that are like, sure, I'll do that, It's like part of our job that is told to us is that our job is to go back to our communities and explain these processes in like a more digestible way, and then to also bring feedback from our communities. But if we only have 4 days to look at something that's complex and not, again, have the ability to look at all the proposals, like we can't do that, and we shouldn't be making those decisions. That's why we don't make actual decisions. We're not elected officials. Like, we are appointed citizens that are here trying to do something good for our community and provide our own voices, but we're not the end-all be-all for the community. So, I mean, I think as we keep saying, there was the public outreach was not there. Yeah, the process was not complete.
And the thing is, I don't. There are things that can be left to the staff and that have all this legalese associated with them, and I understand the RFP process. So I don't want to be part of the panel. Either you figure out which ones complied with the RFP and bring those. That's fine. I don't need to sit on the panel. But I would like to see the RFP before it goes out, make sure it's asking the right question. And so I think that's
Exactly,
the point
yeah,
we're trying to make.
exactly.
And we hear you guys on the outreach and the RFP beforehand, just to address Peter's point. It would be, in my experience at least, it'd be highly unusual to bring all of the RFPs to this body that isn't the selection panel. That's the purpose of the selection panel, is to use the scoring rubric and the essentially grading criteria and to select one of those proposals to move forward. You see this all the time with city council, where a recommended contract after an RFP goes, you see the names, but then that one proposer goes forward. And so in my experience, that would be highly unusual to bring that to you guys.
I think we're also in a highly unusual circumstance, though, because we've had the same vendor since 1987. We have people who have lived their whole lives here, and this is all they've seen. So there's just, I mean, it's really just about the outreach. Whether we see all the different RFPs, it wasn't laid out in a way where we could look at what they looked at and what their comparison are. These tables are a start, but like I still am not getting a clear picture of everything that was looked at, like a breakdown of all the, you have the high level, like different categories, but like a breakdown of what that includes inside of it might answer just a breakdown might answer some of our questions. And we could talk to our community and be like, hey, this is what this means. I mean, that's what happened when we did the rate increases for our sewer and water. Like we had, like throughout the entire process from day one, we were brought in to talk about it. They had done all the selection, the city had done the selection, but we were able to ask questions throughout the process. We had clear breakdowns of like everything that was going on. And then we were able to talk to our communities about that, which is like what we're supposed to do, like what we say.
And then they went out on public meetings.
Exactly, and they had tons of workshops, and they asked a lot of questions, and things changed from one commission meeting to the next because they got public input. And I think this long conversation is basically just all of us being really frustrated that there was no public input and like no public education. So.
Are you referring to the sewer rate increase?
Yeah, the sewer rate increase, sewer.
So that would be, there's a little difference there, though. That wasn't an RFP, was it?
It wasn't
Was there
an
a provider?
RFP, but the process, because rates hadn't been increased in
we
so
had
long.
3 options to consider.
It was because rates, even at the state level, when you have fee payers who are getting increased rates, the fee payers get to have a voice in that, and you discuss it. You say, here's what we're proposing, but fee payers, let's have 10 meetings about it, and you guys can say your piece.
Yeah, but I know that the city is limited in what they can show us in those confidential bids. You can't bring those so when we're saying RFP, that's the whole process. That's the call for it, the request for offers, right, or proposals. And like you were, Suzanne, you were saying, no, we're not saying we wanted to see them and be on the panel and figure it out. That's your job. But then when you have the results of that, like you're doing now, then there would be time and multiple opportunities to clarify to the public, this is what this means. This is what they're offering in comparison to this or that. This is why we chose that. Here are the benefits. And I know that you tried, and I know, it's there. It is. There's a lot of benefits in the presentation. Yeah. There are. I just think needs more time and clarification to let the public,
and when we say
ask
see
their
the
questions.
RFP.
Well, if I could jump in, I feel like we've covered your guys' criticism. There hasn't been sufficient communication outreach, workshops, online content. So I want to be a little respectful of everyone's time. I think I certainly have heard what you guys say. I understand that you're not ready to recommend what we've proposed until there is more robust outreach. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed, or any other comments you have besides the criticism of outreach.
What I was trying to clarify before you interrupted me with, we're not saying we want to see all the responses to all the RFPs. We're saying we want to see the draft RFP before it goes out, and we could probably make it more robust.
And I think I think if we could get more clarification, more apples to apples, and maybe even call like a special commission meeting that we can look at it again and people can come and look at it too. I mean, even if we, we're talking about what, August 19th, and then if we just push it to September, that's not a ton of time to do a public workshop. Those take planning, those take months, to get those ready. And so if you're trying to get public outreach, having it a special commission meeting where you can present some of what we talked about today, but then giving maybe more outreach about, hey, attend the commission meeting, and we can get your feedback and you can see from other community members, because we're seeing from a small subset, like we might have totally different opinions from other people, and that's totally fine, but we just don't know. And so and it puts a lot of pressure on us when we're not the city's decision makers. We're supposed to be recommending things. And so that's why you're hearing frustration from us.
Sure. I think you need to be clear that there is no current state. So if there's no option to say, hey, this is your fee, this is what you can continue, there's no option where if that's clear, that there's no option to keep what you have, the rates and everything else. If that's an option, then you need to be clear. You can't compare it to that. If that's really what you're saying is, I can't compare it to, I pay this much, I get this. If that's not the case, then you need to be clear, because just like the water and wastewater fee, that was clear. That says the fee was changing. So there was nothing. The structure is going to be the same. The service is going to be the same. The fee was changing. So you have two things going on. Is even if we stick with waste management, what I'm hearing is that because the subsidy is going away, it's going to go up anyway. So even if we weren't mid-contract, if the city was going to make a decision that says, I'm going to take this 1.9 million and I'm going to put it somewhere else, the citizens will pay more. That needs to be clear, that there's two actual things going on. One is there's a contract ending, we have to choose something new, and there's this 1.9 million that's going to go away, which to me, if I'm paying it, it's like, well, wait a minute, you put it here already. That's a decision. I'm going to pay more, so you could put essentially 1.9 million somewhere else. So that's what I'm hearing as a citizen, and some people won't like it that way because might be a backdoor tax in that case. So that's what somebody would see, and has nothing to do maybe with your options and choices of service, but there's a cost, and that needs to be clear when you're communicating in your workshops.
Okay, appreciate that feedback.
I wanted to ask one thing. Talking about the process with the water and sewer rates, and it might be a question for Kate, but I think some of that may be, and I'm asking, was that part of the Prop 218 process that you guys are talking about in terms of the outreach and the rate setting and that sort of thing?
I don't remember that much.
Was that a trigger for it?
It probably was, but I don't remember that detail. I was new to the commission when we started, but I just remember we didn't have any meetings like this, there were a few people from the public here and there, but it was because there was a clear process throughout it, and people didn't like it, and the commission, we didn't like it, but ultimately said, it's what we can do. And I think if there had been a clear process and had been transparency, that might be what would have today, but there hasn't been that. Mm-hmm. And so.
And what was on the table at that time was we were told that this was going to public meetings.
Yeah.
So we knew that. But we also had an opportunity, and we did change what was in what they had proposed in terms of how they had allocated costs and which of the repairs they were going to make and in what timeline.
And where they were.
We actually made a change that, full disclosure, probably raised the rate a little bit because we accelerated the time frame on replacing the pump station. So, that's the kind of feedback that we can provide, given that opportunity. But it was with a clear understanding that this was going to the public.
Thank you.
And I do feel, Ryan, that the presentation covered that the subsidy needed to go away.
Thank you.
We're done.
No. Any other discussion on this item? Okay. Sorry. We do like you, Ryan, and we we do appreciate you.
Everything that's been said tonight is legitimate and
Yeah.
fair, both from the public and from you. I have no problem with receiving criticism. It's all said with sincerity, so.
Yeah, and thank you for listening to us and going way over time. Okay, so we don't have anything on our consent agenda, no public hearings, no regular agenda. So do we have a director's report?
Not today, thank you.
And then we don't have any commissioners' communications? No? Okay, then I call the Environment and Utilities Commission to adjournment at 8:45.
Thank you. Thank you.